Hello Internet, it's Drew. Welcome back to the dungeon. Quick follow-up video to the monster damage calculation one. I had a couple of requests on Reddit to also go over like things like the attack bonus versus AC and NADs and the monster hit points and those kinds of things and how they can scale with this idea of an adventure level or AL as well. Again, I should stress this is not all my work. This is like a consolidation of my ideas plus some stuff that I inherited from other DMs who pointed me in the right direction when I first started DMing, and kind of I just took it and ran with it. So this is where I've ended up, but I hope that it helps you in the way that those DMs helped me, right? Basically, the long story short is that because of the way that 4E is built around this idea of the level scaling with the content rather than something with like 5th ed where you have bounded accuracy, which means everybody kind of falls in the same bucket of like hit chance or whatever. In 4E, if you're fighting a level 30 monster and you're level 10, you don't have a hope in hell. You can't even hit it. Right, because its AC and its defenses scale with its level, so stuff is literally out of your reach. I kind of like that. It builds more into like the epic feeling. It makes things feel like in the world that things are actually mechanically unattainable to you, and I think that's cool because it provides something to work for, and it's more of an idea, more of a general underpinning mechanical feeling of epic scope, which ties into the stuff that I talked about in the epic scope video. In order for those values to scale and for to hang together mathematically, we need to work out ways to make that happen. Now, there's loads of tables on the internet. Sly Flourish, again, this awesome spreadsheet. We can see that we have values for low, medium, and high hit points for the monsters. So low would be, a caster or a goblin or something that is not quite physically as imposing. High would be orcs, brutes, ogres, things that are big and tough. And we have an attack versus armor class and attack versus defense. This is bonuses that get added to the 1d20 roll. So when a level 1 monster rolls to hit a PC, it will roll 1d20 and add 6. But you can see that these values are kind of hard-coded into this table, and there's no kind of surfacing of how to write formula that make them scale. So what's actually going on under the hood here is that everything scales up with the level of the monster, and I've just created formula that mimic this essentially. Like the damage was the only thing on this sheet that really needed correcting, and even then only at high levels because it kind of falls off as we saw in the monster damage video. But the attack bonuses and the hit points are ballpark correct. Even then, like, converting this stuff into formulae that you can put into Roll20 or whatever means that you can tweak this stuff, means that you can adjust it as much as you want, which is actually, again, very powerful, gives you the keys to the kingdom, like I mentioned. It means you don't need to rely on published materials anymore. You can just build your own stuff. So what's actually going on here is, if you see, the attack versus AC is +6 at level 1, all that is level +5. Right? And you can see that it scales up level +5 the whole way down. A level 30 monster has a +35 chance to hit, right? And NADs, because the NADs tend to be mechanically 2 less than your armor class for the player characters, the chance to hit for the monsters is also 2 less. To preserve, monsters, I think, have about a 45% chance to hit on average, if I remember my maths correctly. So that's why, if the defense is too lower, then the attack roll has to be too lower as well to preserve that rough chance of hitting. So you can see that this scales up. At level 1, the attack versus AC is level +5, and the attack versus defense is level +3, and that just scales the whole way up. So that's all that's going on there. And then the hit points took a little bit more reverse engineering, but I think I managed to come up with formula that work for those two. So I've added them to the spreadsheet. Here we go. So for standard, your low hit points are actually adventure level times 6 +20. And then that goes up to +8 and times 8 +25 and times 10 +30 for medium and high. If you want to have super minions, which are like not standards, but like tough minions that don't just die in one hit but take a couple of whacks, then you can give them just the level hit points, right? So a level 30 minion will have 30 hit points. A level 2 minion will have 2. It's just to stop them being popped by like, reflective damage that they take 1 or 2 points off. So, I don't know, there's armor types that inflict damage when something hits them. So if they take 1 point of damage and die from hitting the person in the armor, it feels kind of stupid, right? So this just guards against that kind of trivial stuff, and it makes things feel a little better sometimes. Again, use as per your need for your table, and then the AC and the NADs are just 1d20 plus the AL +5 and 3, as we discussed. Now, elites, very simple, is the exact same values multiplied by 2 for hit points, so they get double the hit points of a normal monster. and I tend to add a +1 to their attack rolls as well. So they're a little bit more accurate than standards or minions. So it's 1d20 plus AL plus 6 versus AC, and 1d20 plus AL plus 4 versus NADs. And then the solos are just the hit points are multiplied by 5. Again, this is all as per the same thing as said in the Dungeon Master's Guide. When you're making monsters, elites have double hit points and solos have ×5. And then I add an extra one onto the attack rolls, so they're effectively a +2 to hit, making them even more accurate and deadly. With regard to monster defenses, you have a base of like the level +15 for armor class and the level +13 for defenses, because again, the PC's attacks are likely to be 2 less accurate because they don't have weapon proficiency bonuses when they're attacking an NAD with an implement or whatever. So the monster defenses are 2 less to compensate for that, to give the PCs the same chance to hit. All of this is actual just rigmarole. They should have just made everything even up instead of having this discrepancy of 2 higher and 2 lower and making everything very complicated. But that's the way the system is. So basically you've got level +15 for armor class and level +13 for NADs of monsters, and that just scales up with level, right? So if we look at level 10, then level +15 is 10 and 15 is 25, level +13 is 23. However, if you just have 25 AC and then 23 for all of your NADs, none of the monsters in the Monstrous Manual do that. This is an opportunity to play the stats into the monster's identity a little bit, in that a brute is going to be very high fortitude. It's going to like power through things like poison or any of these kinds of effects, but it's probably going to be quite slow and lumbery, and it might not be very bright. So it's probably tend to have quite a high fortitude, and then maybe like a low will and a middling reflex. Whereas a small, nimble, fast enemy might have very high reflex but low fortitude, or it might be more skittish, right? A goblin more prone to easier to mind control, easier to intimidate, to suffer fear effects, those sorts of things. So you can tailor the NADs a little bit, and typically what I do is I give them like one strong one, one weak one, and one middling one. So that's literally it. There's the formulae here if you want to use them. They're also present here on the monster damage sheet. If you scroll all the way to the right, there's a monster stat column here, and you can see they've all been mapped out. And if we compare this to the Sly Flourish sheet, a level 1 monster has 26, 33, and 40. In Sly Flourish, it has 24, 30, and 38. So I'm pretty close, right? And then the scales all the way up. A level 30 monster, 199, 264, 330. 200, 265, 330. So I'm pretty much... It should pretty much be within a couple of hit points of all of those levels, and you can just plug those into your VTT. I'll show you how. So again, I have a journal called Core down here, which has these values in. I have hit points low, medium, and high as attributes, and the minion hit points are just the AL, and I've put these formulas in here. So you can see 20 plus, AL, whatever, 25, 30 plus. So these ones here, and then the monsters, when I call them, I'll just pull up, I've got like a template for a heroic standard brute, let's say. I've made these monster templates as well for each different type of monster. This is over-engineered, right? Like I just did this because I wanted to figure it out. I don't suggest, go ahead and do this. It helps you plan. I can, at this point, because I have these things copied out, they have example powers in them that suit that type of monster. And I can just copy and paste this entire monster into an adventure folder and just modify them as needed. But yeah, so that's another story. But yeah, here in the attributes and abilities, I actually have a macro. Again, this is not my idea, totally stealing this, but it really, really works. So you have a macro which is called DM info, and what it does is it whispers to the GM. So it whispers you, when you take control of that monster, you push that button, and then it whispers you a bunch of information about the monster so that you know exactly what that monster can do. When it's the monster's turn, when the monster's being attacked, you might push it then as well, and you just get a little reminder of going like, okay, here's what this monster does, rather than you needing to keep it all in your head at all times, which is very, very hard. I'm using the standard Roll20 roll template in here. You can find how to do this on their website. There's all documentation. If you read through their documentation, it's worth it. So whisper to the GM using the template default name, and then you can refer to the various fields here. So character name, it will actually type out whatever you've put up the top here. So it's going to say heroic standard brute, and then level, and then it goes and gets the AL from core, the core journal, which is over here. So this value, and then it goes, okay, type is here. So it's a standard, roll is here, and it's a brute, and then Keywords, I've got a keyword field, so it just spews out whatever I've put in there. AC, they're a little easier to hit because they're kind of big and lumbery. So AC is level plus 14. Fort is level plus 15, so that's, you know, on par. And then their ref and their will are lower. That's to compensate for the fact that they're kind of like, they've got more hit points and they tend to do more damage. So all this is doing fundamentally is going through each of these fields and saying, okay, I'm going to add the adventure level or make a calculation based on the adventure level that will somehow, you know, spit all this out. So armor class plus the AL, fort plus the AL, ref plus the AL, will plus the AL. So these values plus whatever is in the core of AL. So basically, if you change that, again, if you change that AR value, that means that all of these defenses will scale. So if the AL goes up to 20, it'll just add 20 onto these values instead of 10. And then you have immunities, resistances, vulnerabilities. You can put a damage type in here if you want. And then basically, to get really fancy, like all of their attacks, insert that damage type. So if I put necrotic in there, like you can see here, the MBA calls the core for damage high, and then it says that damage type. So if I put fire in there, it would say 24 fire damage. You know, these things are kind of assembling themselves with every roll. I realize this is quite nerdy and probably a little bit over the top for most DMs. But I kind of like this because once you have the system set up, you can just change a couple of values here and there and all the macros will kind of take care of themselves. You don't need to rewrite them all, which is like, I just find incredibly tedious. I was like, okay, how can I make this a system so that I can just change the minimum stuff needed in order to get the monster to do what I want it to do? And this is, you know, where I ended up. There's probably like, I could create a much more elegant thing with code. Now I could probably code something in Python that would spit these macros out. I've just been too lazy to do it or too busy. Sorry, going off a tangent. Getting back to the thing, this macro goes through and calculates all this stuff and then just spits it out. And what it looks like is this. So if I call it, it's basically going to go there. Puts everything in a nice table and just goes, here you go, right? So it's called the name heroic standard brute. It said a level 10 over here. Standard brute, which is taken from here and here. Keyword, 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 because I don't have any. But if I put in like, you know, large undead humanoid, then it would put those there. It goes and calculates the AC, fort, ref, and will based on the AL. It, you know, the move is in whatever's in the move box over here. So 6. If I change that to 3, then this will change to 3. No immunities, no resistances, no vulns because I say none, none, none here. But if I had put, you know, resist 5 necrotic, then it would dump that out there. Hit points, it goes and does the calculation based on the stuff that I already showed you here. And then I tend to put a custom like reminders here for each monster, which I go through and edit. And that's basically my aim is, look, that's the only bit that I really need to pay a lot of attention to when I'm, you know, building the monster, is just reminders for the stuff it can do based on the unique monster that we have. But the stats and whatever will take care of themselves and I don't need to think about it, which is actually really good, right? So that's what it looks like when you have, you know, these stats and how to implement them into something like Roll20, or at least the way that I do it. Values are now added. They're all in the sheet there. You can just go ahead and use them. Like if I grab this formula here, copy that, I'll paste it literally straight into the chat here, get rid of the extra space, and I roll that. Oop, no, because I need to point it at the core. At core, because that's where the formula is stored, AL times 6 plus 20, and I get 80 back, right? So because we have 10 times 6 is 60 plus 20, 80, done. I think that's all I can think of for this video. Let me know if I missed anything though, or if there's any other bits and pieces you want to see. Maybe we can go over like the macros or whatever at some point, but that's going to be really techie. But yeah, maybe that could be a good video. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. So yeah,